Welcome into today's review. We are talking about Guillermo del Toro's newest movie, Nightmare Alley. So I've seen this now twice. Is it twice? Actually, I've seen this 3 times in the theaters now. So I'll give up the ghost here. Really, really, really like this movie. I'm very into this movie. I wanted to go and see. There's a black and white version that's currently going throughout the country right now that I really want to see, but also it's on Hulu and HBO Max. So if you're interested at all and you're at home, you didn't get a chance to see this, you now can. You can watch it even at home. For everyone that's on the Patreon, thank you very much for sticking with us on there. Right after this, we're going to do a new topic live stream. This week is going to be about why it is that we follow directors. Why that. I understand. It's easy to understand that it's a popular thing to do, but why exactly is that something that we do? So that's something that I'll be talking about. And also, if you want to subscribe, I'm actually going to go ahead and change the subscription on there. We've got like a few different tiers. I'm just going to put everything into one $5 tier. So just one payment, and then you get all of the extras, extra reviews, extra topics, polls to vote on for different types of movies to watch. Hello, Fuzz Aldrin. I like that you changed your name again. I like this one. I can't see that's a funny thumbnail. That's a very funny thumbnail. Okay. So first of all, from a very technical perspective, I listened to an interview with Guillermo del Toro about Nightmare Alley. I kind of, in guessing how much it is that this movie costs, it seems like it's a movie that costs around like 90 or $100 million. It looks absolutely beautiful. The soundtrack is incredible. A lot of very high-powered actors. It turns out this movie only cost $60 million to make, which kind of reminds how Shape of Water was around the exact same. And I hated Shape of Water, but that movie does look really, really good. Guillermo del Toro's movies look incredible, which I'll get to in a second. Another thing that I talked about recently on the Patreon, a topic was, what are the differences between a movie that is about something, a movie that is kind of like a preachy message movie, and then a movie that's kind of like a flat out propaganda thing. And this was something that I was talking about in terms of Don't Look Up, which I feel is a little, unfortunately, nothing but a message movie. This Nightmare Alley is an example of a movie that is not focused on preaching a message at all. It is wholly focused on the story. And because it's wholly focused on the story, it is actually about something. And it's about one of the kind of like seven. It's one of the topics that I'm more interested in, something like greed, something that kind of corrupts people's soul. Bradley Cooper does a great job of playing a character that's really a cautionary tale about someone stumbling into depravity, I would say, and kind of failing their way into, or I guess succeeding their way into depravity. He does a great job with this. Apparently, the character was originally supposed to be played by Leonardo DiCaprio, but it's hard to tell going back and watching it again exactly what it was that Leonardo DiCaprio would have brought to the role that would have been better than Bradley Cooper. Bradley Cooper has been doing such an incredible job. In terms of this year, he's had Licorice Pizza, he's had Nightmare Alley, whereas Leonardo DiCaprio has only had Don't Look Up. And between those two performers, Bradley Cooper has shown up and shown a much wider range, at least as of recent. We know Leo has range, but Bradley Cooper in this movie pulls off something that I would think is very, very difficult. Like, he doesn't have a line for the first like 15 or 20 minutes of this movie, but he carries the whole thing. Guillermo del Toro talks about how technically, because his character is essentially a liar through and throughout the entire movie, and the way that they give him a role at the beginning that's really hiding in shadows, and the way that he's able to not do a showy performance for the first half of this movie, but to be someone who's really more of a spectator, someone who's watching. He still commands the screen. He still commands your attention, even though he is not doing a showy performance. But that's probably the wrong thing to say. He's not even asking for your attention for the first half of this movie. It isn't until about, I would say, 50 minutes into it that his character really steps up and gives a speech that is the first time that you realize that this character is at the center of this story. Before that, it is really him kind of being as much of a spectator as everyone else is, just kind of sucking in information, watching, learning. And he does a great job at balancing out being able to be a spectator, but also be the lead of the movie and do a great job. And then whenever he does take off, you can tell all of that seediness that was underneath. I think it's a good thing to go back and watch it a few times, at least 2 times. Because the first time that you watch it, you kind of think someone has been corrupted and that he's grown to this seedy character in the second half of the movie. But when you go back and you see it again, you see that person that he becomes in the second half is there throughout the entire first half of the movie. It's just Bradley Cooper's doing such a good job of being the main character without actually putting his character front and center in the role. Fuzz Aldrin says the new 2021 version fixed the little problems in the 1949 version of Nightmare Alley. That's another good point to bring up. This is another topic discussion I want to bring up. What is the difference between something being a remake, whereas there's a 1949 version and this is the 2021 version, as opposed to something being a reimagining of the book? We have tons of remakes that were, the original was based on source material and it's seen as a remake. And then you have things like Guillermo del Toro brought this up, like what do you do with Shakespeare? Like what version of Shakespeare is the definitive Shakespeare, and when do things start becoming a remake of those film adaptations of Shakespeare? So going back to it actually being about something, and it's not about something in a way where you walk out and you're like, well, that's the lesson of everything. It's more about, you can tell that the movie has something to say about human nature, and it tells that through an incredible story. It actually has something going on beneath the surface. And technically, you can tell that everything, the camera movements, the cinematography, well, okay, I hate doing that. I said the same thing in two different ways. The cinematography, the sets, the props, the sound, everything you can tell is informed by this thing that the movie is talking about, which is a story about someone really destroying themselves, not realizing that they're destroying themselves, but that inevitably being what they're doing through greed, through jealousy, through unchecked ambition. And I love the way Guillermo del Toro put it. He said that the entire movie is a prologue for the last 2 minutes, which I think is a beautiful way to describe this movie. The last, I would even say 10 minutes, makes this movie worth checking out a second time. It's really, really good. I feel like if you are the type of person that feels like we're missing out on quality, complicated storytelling, then this is the type of movie that you really, really want to watch. Guillermo del Toro is a very reliable filmmaker when it comes to things like Shape of Water, even though I was not a fan of that, but you can tell that he's doing something unique and original that we don't get a lot. Crimson Peak, Kronos, Devil's Backbone, Pan's Labyrinth. Nightmare Alley is one of those movies. This was in my top 5 of this year. It's a really, really spectacular watch. If you have not seen it, check it out now on Hulu, HBO Max, and leave your thoughts in the comments. And please, if you have not already, subscribe to 5 Minute Critic for future updates on reviews and movie news.